From the Ben Pixel Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Phone Booth Fighting with myself, Richard Hunter.
I'm Frank Mayer.
That's right, and we do this once a week. We have claimed twice a week. Sometimes we get twice a week done, but our real goal is once a week. Yeah, and so far we're doing okay with that lately. Check out our website, phoneboothfighting.com. That is where you will find past episodes. You can also find those in iTunes. If you look us up in iTunes, Phone Booth Fighting, do us a favor, click on the 5 stars. That helps us stay near the top of the ratings. And if you have a moment, write a favorable line or two in the comment section. We talk about the world of mixed martial arts and so far beyond. We'll have a little bit of everything for you today, including a review of Frank's first Kiss concert. He went to that
That's right.
Last week. I know. I'm very excited to talk about that. All right, first things first. Let's get a little MMA out of the way. ESPN, not out of the way. We'll talk about it for as long as you want to. But the big news of the past week or so was the return of Cain Velasquez, who, after 2.5-year layoff, a guy that's had a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about careers that have been as great as they've been, not muted, but diminished, I guess is fair, compared to what they could have been if they had been injury-free. You talk about the amount of layoffs. I mean, a couple of names come to mind in this era: Dominic Cruz and Cain Velasquez.
Those are the two at the top of the list.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Cain was out for 2.5 years.
I didn't think he was going to come back. Talking to Josh and some of the other guys on his team, hearing about some of the things that he had to go through with his back, and hearing that I don't think they were too happy, with how the back surgery turned out. As far as I think anybody that has anything fixed in their body knows that sometimes it's really a coin toss. It sometimes takes, sometimes it doesn't.
When you say happy with how it turned out, what do you look for in situations like that when you're not happy with it?
Well, I think you realize that anytime you have something cut, it's never going to be how it was before. But what happens is you realize, okay, now I'm injured to the point where it's not functioning at all, and I just want to get back a level of functionability to where I can operate, and that's what you look for. And then it's disappointing sometimes when you have a procedure done and then you go back out on the mats and all of a sudden, you're like, oh, damn, okay, now I'm going to have to change how I do things because this isn't even, maybe it's a little bit better, but it's not to the point to where you're like, okay, I can completely change levels again or whatever the case may be, the hindrance, whether it's a knee, a lower back. And with your back being injured, I mean, it's just, you really can't have any part of your body injured and get through it. I mean, I can't sit there and go, well, a back is worse than a knee or a neck injury or, they all have their problems. But I mean, it's safe to say that anything along the spine, how do you avoid it? And having lower back injuries, I mean, you see it all the time with Derek Lewis. His lower back issues really hurt him all the time. I mean, he's been in the middle of fights where it looks like it's going to give out on him. And so with Cain Velasquez, I feel for him for having the back issues.
What do you think about as it pertains to his particular style?
Well, I think it's rough because he is a wrestler first. If he was a pure, say Anderson Silva had a bad back, it's like, okay, well, he's not carrying any weight on his shoulders. He's not going to jump down on someone's leg and try to drive through a single or a double, So especially a wrestling-based style, having a lower back issue is rough, I mean, that being said, I mean, it still hurts to swing and throw a punch if your lower back hurts, and look, when my back is flared up on me, even doing guard work and having someone pressing down in closed guard can be painful. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to avoid, but sure the hell no one wants to pick something up off the ground. I mean, if I sit there and go, okay, your back hurts, cool. All right, you see that luggage over there, 50 pounds a piece? Go ahead and pick it up and walk up the stairs. You're not going to want to even closely entertain that idea. And now I'm saying, okay, now you have a 250-pound or 260-pound guy who doesn't want you to pick him up, and he's going to be trying to hit you, and you got to go pick him up with your back not being at 100%.
Yeah. It all came to a head this weekend in Phoenix. Cain Velasquez made his return. He got knocked out quickly by Francis Ngannou, a fairly recent challenger for the heavyweight title, a guy whose weaknesses got a bit exposed against Stipe Miocic, but a guy who has been on the comeback. He dropped one to Stipe, and he dropped one to Derek Lewis. We were just talking about before getting back on the winning track. But it was going into this fight. Cain Velasquez, of course, known for cardio. The big X factor was all the time that he had been out. What kind of shape was he going to be in? And basically, the knockout was a combo of punches that dropped Velasquez. Now, Velasquez looked like he got a knee injury. He went down weird. I believe it was his left knee, kind of folded underneath him. And sometimes when you're stunned like that, so I've heard, if you don't quite have all your faculties about you, if somebody hits you in the head, you can twist up a knee pretty weird when you go down to the mat.
Not that you have first-hand experience.
Not that I know anything about that, and not that I'm going to see a doctor about it on Monday. But no, that can happen.
Yeah.
And he definitely, there was like a very visible grimace of pain on Cain's face when that knee folded. What the knockout lacked was that kind of highlight, when we see the highlight compilation reel put together and you get these slow motion, like square to the face punches where you see the guy's face all mushed up and everything.
We're going to start seeing less and less of those, in my opinion. I think, on a side note, we stop fights way too soon now.
Okay, this is what I was going to ask about, because some people have said, was the fight stopped too soon? Did any of those punches land? One thing that I have learned is that while those square to the face punches look better on highlight reels, also punches can be deceptive. Like if they go to the temple or they go behind the ear, sometimes what appears to sort of be a glancing blow, especially when a heavyweight's throwing them, are much more impactful than they can appear on camera.
Yeah.
So your opinion on that?
Early stoppages.
Okay.
And that just seems to be the theme now. I mean, just recently, about a month ago, the T.J. Dillashaw, Henry Cejudo fight.
Yeah.
That absolutely was an early stoppage. I mean, to me, I was always under the impression the referee's there to protect you when you don't have the mental capacity to protect yourself. But to me, if you're constantly moving, and just like in the Dillashaw fight, he was changing levels and shooting. Now, was he still getting hit? Yeah. Did he get rocked with that right hand on the? Yeah, he got rocked, man. It made his legs give out. But to sit there, to me, you get hit and your arms go limp and someone's going in to hit you 2 or 3 more times, referee grabs you because you can't defend yourself. But if you're still scrambling and moving away and maybe the guy's catching shots, I mean, I think it just fighters deserve a more definitive ending. I mean, if we were to have this type of refereeing towards the beginning of the UFC, I mean, Frankie Edgar never would have had a career. I mean, think of some of the wars that he's had. I mean, I've been in fights where I've come back where I've been rocked really hard and able to.
Nogueira.
The Nogueira fight, the second one. If the way they stop fights now, they would have stopped that fight. And look, obviously I was okay. I was just stunned. And I think, guys, referees are just, I don't know if the commissions are coming down on the refs telling them, hey, we have issues here. I don't know what it is, but I just noticed that guys, especially in the UFC, I've noticed it to be the worst, really jumping on guys. I mean, for every fight I see that possibly goes too long, I can point at 10 of them that were stopped short. And that really robs guys of opportunities on both sides. I mean, like you're saying, Francis was robbed of possibly, let's say they let the fight continue a little bit more. Cain gets up again and takes another shot. Now, Francis has him, lined up on sights, and now he can land that clean shot that completely puts him out. That would have been better for his career. On the flip side, I've seen Cain get hurt and stunned. The way they stop fights now, they possibly would have stopped his fight with Czech Congo. If you go back and watch that fight, he was rocked and dropping. He fought through it. He's shown an ability to come through adversity and fight through it. Now, the stoppage he had with Junior Dos Santos. Junior hit him. He was hurt. He tried to defend himself a little bit, and then a couple more shots came in, and you could see his head drop, hit the mat. He's out. To me, that's a good stoppage. He doesn't have any damage from it. I mean, it isn't like you talk to Cain. It's like, oh, that fight, that one extra punch. It's like, to me, it's still such a unknown area. this is what it is. And I don't think any of the fighters are in the back watching fights where a guy is allowed to fight to the full. I've been in the back room. Let me tell you, what scares a fighter most is when we see fights stopped early, because then it makes you nervous. You're sitting there going, shit, if I get stunned, this guy's going to jump on it. You know what I mean? Like, that's scary to put so much of your life and time into something. It'd be like every NFL game if it was a sudden death. First guy to score. It's like, oh, shit, man. I mean, first guy to score doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win the whole game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What did you think about – I mean, it's hard to know really what – I guess he gave Cain kind of an incomplete in that situation as far as really knowing where he's at, right?
26 seconds. I mean, how do you – it sucks. I mean, I thought that was a possibility just because of not power-wise but reach-wise. Mm-hmm. Francis reminds me a lot of, Czech Congo, who also has an 80-plus inch reach. They both have long arms. And Congo was able to catch Cain, but then wasn't able to keep him off of him. And then Cain recovered, came back, and hit him about 300 times, I think, in their fight. And now you had a person who's, has 30 pounds on Congo, and Francis has that same range. And I just didn't know if he was going to pull the trigger, and Francis was able to do so. Even for him, I don't know how that much it helps him get over the demon, that monkey he has on his shoulder. I think that, the Stipe Miocic fight really had a negative impact on Francis. You saw it against, Derek Lewis, where he was just terrified of being taken down to the point of not throwing. Mm-hmm. And here, he prepared for a fight that would basically be on paper the worst matchup for him, and a guy who's going to wrestle him to death. And he came through and landed the shots that needed to be landed. But with it being so fast, it's like one of those things where it's like,
we already knew that Francis Ngannou can knock somebody out in 26 seconds.
Anybody who fights Francis knows. Most every heavyweight hits hard. Mm-hmm. You take a direct shot from, Miocic, Daniel Cormier landed one shot on the chin of you start putting 245 pounds behind a punch, people fall down. Their hands are wrapped, tiny little, glove on it. You hit someone on the chin in the heavyweight division. That's why it has the highest knockout percentage. I don't know of a heavyweight that I can think that doesn't have a knockout on his record getting, caught. Well, maybe Francis. I don't know if he's been caught yet.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't think Francis has ever been caught.
Yeah.
But it'll happen eventually, Everybody in that division, when they're throwing, they fall down. People get caught. And with Francis being known as to be the most powerful puncher of the bunch.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing on Ngannou. I wanted to go back because I couldn't remember what how Ngannou lost his second fight. That was a unanimous decision back in 2013 before he was in the UFC.
Oh, yeah, I think he got wrestled up pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, that was over in Paris at the 100% Fight Contenders 21 card.
I thought France MMA was illegal.
I thought so too. But he has 4 fights in France.
I wonder if they have pockets where legislation's a little bit different, like Basque Country or something.
Yeah, or maybe they've got some kind of weird rules to it. Pancrase, open.
No punching on the ground or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I don't know, because if the rules get too weird like that, they won't put them on their MMA fights.
Yeah.
They wouldn't.
Yeah, right.
I remember it was like Miguel Torres had a ton of fights that didn't get counted because they were that, open hand on the ground. Okay, that's not MMA.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right.
No. Well, that was UFC's debut on ESPN proper. And we talked about the cards on ESPN,
I just thought about something.
The app. Mm-hmm.
Wasn't the defense of Cain Velasquez when he first fought Junior Dos Santos, he got knocked out in a minute?
Yeah. That was on Fox.
And it was the first show.
You know what? That's true. Yeah.
If I was Cain, I'd stop fighting on any. Anytime there's a new network, I'm like, I'm not the premier fight.
Boy,
dude.
No kidding.
Somebody else could pick that fight for me.
And imagine that you're just generic mainstream sports guy who never would get Fight Pass, never watch a UFC pay-per-view. It's just whenever UFC happens to move from one major sports network to the other, you just happen to watch the card, and you're like,
guy's always getting his ass
kicked. This guy, boy, he has a hard time hanging. Yeah, you missed out on a Hall of Fame career.
If Cain hadn't been injured as much as injuries he did, arguably he'd go down as one of the best heavyweights of all time.
I think he still is in that argument. I mean, he's got. I mean, those are the marks.
Well, that's what holds him down.
Mm-hmm.
Is like even this fight. Look, everybody gets caught. I mean, it happens. I mean, it happens. So that's not really, to me, this last performance enough to knock him out of that argument if he's in the argument. To me, it's just that not enough fights as far as other guys have had more time in there, and he just was never able to do some of the things like Miocic was able to do, defend the belt 5 times,
right.
And it's like, okay, but that comes from being healthy and able to perform and go out there. And just, I don't know if Cain's training philosophy was maybe he just trains too brutally. I've never trained with him, but I get kind of a feeling because the AKA guys get injured a lot.
Yeah.
I have a feeling they just, they're a tough team, one of the best in the world. I never think I've ever seen a guy who's out of shape come out of that. Have you ever seen an AKA guy gas? Not that I can think of. I mean, they're always ready to fight.
Just running down the list in my head. No.
I just think that it's brutal there. But, I mean, that being said, Daniel Cormier doesn't ever have issues with injuries, and he's older. I mean, you go down the list of guys. I mean, even the middleweight champ.
Rockhold.
Yeah. I mean, Rockhold doesn't really deal with too many.
Not the middleweight champ now, but former middleweight champ. Yeah. Khabib, though, he's had injuries. He's had a lot of injury issues.
I think Khabib, though, just has Khabib is my argument for not training kids too young, too early.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you can sit there and go, well, the guy's 26-0 and one of the best fighters in the world. I'm like, yeah, but what's his body going to look like when he's 40? Because, I mean, he's already not even 30, and, he's had, knee surgeries, I guess I take that with my kids. I let them compete and go out there. But when they're injured or something like that, I mean, to Bella's dismay, it pisses her off. And Cage, when it comes to football, it pisses him off. But I'm quick to pull the plug. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, you're limping. What's wrong? Oh, no, stop. Where I think some, parents want to teach mental toughness and they make their kid go out there when they're hurt. And I'm all, why? For what purpose are you providing right now? Like mental toughness, put them on a treadmill. You know what I mean? Like you could kick the shit out of somebody mentally.
Yeah.
And I never once really endanger your body. I mean, well, let's go sit in a swimming pool, tread water, go. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna, I can burn the hell out of you without, if you want to test someone's mental fortitude, without, testing their ability to go. I don't know. Like to me, it's like it's a young body, it's developing, and then you see it as they get older. That it's like, wow, now they get poor guys trashed.
Yeah, but the mental toughness is exactly that, mental. It's in the word. Like I think your mental toughness is really measured by whether or not you want to go out there.
Yeah.
Like it's not whether or not you do, and then you get further injured. It's whether or not you want to. As long as you know in your mind you want to do that, but you're doing what's better.
Because your mind wants to go out there. You need that other person, that third party to sit there and go, nope, I'm sorry, I'll be the bad guy, but you're not going.
Right. Well, hopefully we'll get to see more. Cain's going to be 37 in July. So, I mean, hopefully he stays healthy, then hopefully the knee was not anything that's going to have him out for another extended period of time. And, maybe the last couple of years are probably going to mean a lot in terms of, where we put his career when it's all said and done. Like I said, I think it's going to be one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. But like you said, where is he really going to be able to go out on a higher note? Hopefully, so he'll be able to reclaim some of that
heavyweights
ranking.
Are fighting in the mid-40s.
Yeah,
and I think he could, but just what holds him back is injuries. You're like, well, shit, man. If they've been holding him back when he's in his early to mid-30s, unless stem cells, man. I don't know. What's his name? I can't ask you this. Who was the quarterback for Broncos? Before that, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, he had a broken neck.
Yeah.
And his career looked like it diminished his throwing power. And they don't talk about it, but whatever he did, I think he went and did stem cells and somehow came back. I think Cain needs to figure out, something drastic to go ahead and come back.
Didn't Peyton Manning get a couple of suspicious shipments in the mail? I think I remember there was some story about that.
I think he got in trouble because he went outside.
Something came to his house. That's what I remember. And
was it him?
Yeah, I think it was. I could be wrong. I'll look it up.
Yeah, look that up.
In the meantime,
I do know that someone, because I was interested in stem cells and I've been researching it. and they used Peyton Manning as an example. I was like, oh, well, how come they don't talk more about that? He's like, oh, because the NFL has major sponsors that are prescription companies. They can't have this guy going out there saying, hey, these helped me go from basically almost retiring to going back and winning another Super Bowl with another team. No, we want you to be on pain management drugs and anti-inflammatories and a whole list of other things that I know that I can keep you on for a long time. Western medicine's not really big into the, hey, we got you fixed. Go ahead and go on live your life now.
Yeah. It was that. It was about the possibility of using HGH. It was an accusation that an Indianapolis clinic had sent HGH to his home in Florida. This was in 2015.
No way.
Let's see. According to documents filed federal court, the clinic said that the HGH was meant for his wife, and it had been prescribed by a doctor who specialized in anti-aging medicine.
That is extremely plausible. You know how many women in the movie industry are on growth hormone?
No.
It keeps you young looking. When you think about it, that's what starts aging you, amongst other things, with a lack of your body producing growth hormone.
Yeah, well, that was a controversy.
But if he really was using it for himself, come on. A guy at that level who's a multi-millionaire, as intelligent as he obviously is, you have buddies that, Like, come on, he'd have his buddy go ahead, anybody who's going to buy something.
Amazon.
Yeah, come on. It would be like you buying a dildo. Do you really want to show up to your house? You have your buddy buy it.
Yeah, that's what I got you for.
Yeah, that's right. I'm glad we didn't talk about that.
Yeah. All right, so in other MMA news, word out that this from our friends over at MMA Junkie, that George St. Pierre is set to announce his retirement from MMA. Did we need this announcement? This is, to me, is like Barry Manilow announcing that he's gay. Like, I just assumed George St. Pierre
Barry Manilow's
was
gay?
Yeah,
no shit?
Yeah,
Really?
You're late to the party. Yeah, but
I know the name, and the guy, he's like the Frank Sinatra type singer, right?
Yeah.
See there, I knew that.
Yeah, but by the time he did, it was kind of like, we kind of picked up on that.
What about Freddie Mercury?
Yeah, everybody knew Freddie Mercury was gay, right? Yeah, there you go, Freddie Mercury. But just meaning that I just kind of assumed George St. Pierre was not planning on coming. He had made the one fight comeback back in it was a year ago in November. But at that point, he had been out 3 years. He's 37 years old, and this is going to be made official on Thursday. He's going to have a press conference in Montreal to announce his retirement. Is this any more of a surprise to you than it is not to me?
No, okay. I guess I'm more surprised to make it official. I don't know too many guys in MMA that have an official conference to announce their retirement.
Yeah, that's true. You don't see that a lot. I was thinking about. I remember when Forrest Griffin retired, it was just after a fight. It was. Was it the last time he fought Tito? I think that was maybe the last fight he had. Is that right? I think that's right. I'll look it up. But anyway, I was at the fight. I was covering the fight, and we're just in the press conference. And before the press conference starts, Forrest comes in and just, gets up and thanks everybody for a great career and announces he's retired, and that was that, Sometimes you see guys do it in the ring. You see them leave the gloves in the center of the ring. Or the cage.
Yeah, like Randy telling someone, this is my last fight. I won't be doing this anymore.
Yeah. Let's see about our buddy Forrest. I think that was the Tito fight. The win at UFC 148. That was July of 2012 when he defeated Tito Ortiz. Yeah, it didn't surprise me either. All right. Yeah, and I still, just getting back to the ESPN thing.
Did he supposedly say his retirement from MMA?
Yeah, George.
Yeah. Like he's going to do something in another combat sport, or just coincidentally said that?
Yeah, I just viewed it as he was already retired, but he came back one time. That's kind of how I felt about it. I didn't ever get the idea that he was going to make a whole second career out of it, because as soon as he came back and won, then he's on the shelf again.
Well, when he first won, I thought that maybe we would see him coming back, but basically hand-picking, okay, I'll take a super fight with Conor or super fight with Anderson Silva, doing those type of matchups, not necessarily defending against the number one contender type, which to me after the career he's had, I thought was more than acceptable. It's understandable. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
But when he relinquished the belt, I thought that was his retirement there.
Yeah, I kind of did too. I don't know.
Because doesn't he have health issues? Was it something like with his stomach or something?
Yeah, there was some talk about that around that time. Yeah. So he's always struck me as a guy who, compared to a lot of guys that have maybe stuck around too long or something like that. I mean, clearly the Bisping fight was the right fight for him, but he seems to have kind of gotten out at a good time, at the right time, Hall of Fame career. I didn't see a reason for him to really linger too much about it. I mean, I thought he, later in his career, he kind of, I guess really after the Matt Serra upset, that he kind of morphed into the style of fighter that he is, and there was always a blueprint with his fighting too, that you kind of knew a lot of times how he was gonna defeat somebody. But I don't know. I mean, what do you think? When you saw him fight Bisping, do you think that there was a reason to just for him to continue fight? I guess you're saying you thought it was going to be more like him handpicking opponents.
Yeah, I thought he could handpick opponents because, even the Bisping fight, I thought if that would have went another round, Bisping was going to win.
Yeah.
It wasn't looking good for him. He was having a hard time taking Bisping down. He was having a hard time holding him down. And even when he took him down, if I remember correctly, I think Bisping beat his ass from the bottom way more than he inflicted damage from the top. It was almost like, he was holding on, trying to, get his bearings and, establish position and the whole time, Bisping's so slippery and hard, knows how to post properly to get up and driving his hips. And then when he gets shut down, was coming back with elbows and punches from the bottom. I think that, not that he caught Bisping, like it wasn't a lucky shot, but I think it was a good thing he threw that left hook where Bisping has the blindness in that right eye. And when it caught him, it was able to finish him off with a choke. Had that gone on, even if they were to if you told me, hey, they're refighting in 3 months, who you betting on? After I watched that performance, I would have taken Bisping.
Yeah, well, probably the right time then for George to call it a career. All right, let's talk some Kiss. So Friday night, Frank and I and our gal pals went to see Kiss. And for me, it was the, 48th time I've seen Kiss. For
Has
Frank,
it really been that many times?
No, it's not that many. But it's
it's been over 20.
More than I can count. Yeah. And for Frank, it was his first time. Yep. We went to the T-Mobile Arena here in Las Vegas. Kiss is on their end of the road tour, their last tour ever, they say. And Kiss, founded in 1971. Kiss is about as old as me. Yeah. And for me, they were my Bruce Lee. They had more of an impact on me than any single thing outside of my family, and in some cases even family included, to sort of make me into what I wanted to be as an adult. So it brings back all kinds. It's weird. I don't have a lot. I say I don't have a lot of childhood memories, but my childhood, Frank, this probably will not surprise you. My childhood was spent just kind of waiting to be an adult. I didn't enjoy being a kid. I didn't like kid things. I felt like I always got along. I always related better to older people, and so a lot of the stuff that I was interested in was adult stuff, and it was just kind of a, hey, it's going to get a lot better from here. Like I just got to get a little older and get out there and do it. So I don't have a lot of typical kid memories, but watching that Kiss concert, that's what I associate a lot of my kid memories with. Like after elementary school, I carried a Kiss lunchbox every day, which I still have. after school, instead of running home and playing outside, I'm going in my room and playing my Kiss records, and then once I was learning to play guitar and things like that, playing along to the records. So that was there was a lot of memories flooding back every time I see Kiss. But this was your first time. Now, Kiss has an interesting association with this show because Paul Stanley, the co-founder of Kiss, along with Gene Simmons, is a fan of Frank's and follows him on Twitter and is a big fan of his fights. And a couple of years ago, he invited Frank and I to his house, and he co-hosted an entire podcast with us, which is still on our iTunes archives if you want to check that out. One of the happiest days of my life, as a matter of fact, as it turned out. And we still are fond of telling the stories of that day. So this show has an interesting association with Kiss, but Frank, you're 10 years younger than me. You know who Kiss is, but not being like the biggest music fan to begin with, and then being a little younger than that target age, you had less of a knowledge about it than I did. So all that being said, what did you think of the show?
I was impressed. It was very much of a. I don't think you can really appreciate Kiss just by listening to them on the radio.
Right, for sure.
They are a made for live performing band. And at one point I sat there, I was like, man, fucking guys don't get tired. They're out there screaming and yelling for 2 hours, just singing, hard. And then when at one point when Stanley was talking about that, our first performance, they're showing pictures of them in 1975. I'm like going, holy fuck. My dad was like a junior in high school.
Yeah.
I wasn't even a twinkle in his eye.
Yeah.
And these guys were out performing. And I'm sitting here in the stands watching them out there jump around and yell and be very vibrant with their energy and put on a great performance. So I was blown away. So, I was impressed with their performance, but knowing that these guys are not spring chickens.
No, they're like 70. Gene Simmons going to be 70 this year.
That fucking baffles me. I'm just like, wow. Talk about healthy eating and just good life, which is weird because you would think that the normal, conception of, or what's the word I'm trying to say?
Stereotype?
Yeah, stereotype's a good word. Of what you would think of a rock star's lifestyle would not be somebody who would be able to be out there for 40 years performing. And be able to, and not, and even when they showed the pictures of them up on the thing, I looked up and I'm like looking down, I'm like, holy shit, these guys are fucking immortal. Like, they don't look that much different. You know what I mean? Very slight differences in how, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons look. They look the same. Yeah.
Paul Stanley does not have the physique of the 70-year-old man. Like, he's still getting in the tiny little suit, and he's got the
his
the
arms
definition.
Are buff, obviously, when you see him without makeup, you can look and go, he's a bit older of a gentleman. But you're right. Sit there. If you told me, that guy's 70, or close to, I'm like, bullshit. There's no way. Honestly, they look like extremely healthy 50-year-olds.
Yeah. They were pioneers in everything you saw as far as the pyrotechnics and the explosions and the stagecraft and all that. They were real pioneers in that. Nowadays you see stuff like that more. I got a couple questions, though. Mm-hmm.
Was Gene Simmons spitting on people?
Not on, I wouldn't say on people, but one of his gimmicks is he spits blood. Is that what you're talking about?
No,
when he does
not
the fake
blood thing, but he was as he was doing it, it seemed like he was spitting.
No, not on people. But I think after he does the blood gimmick, which is and he's done that their whole career, where he has like a blood capsule in his mouth and it's like a fake blood thing, then he's still got that stuff in his mouth. So periodically he's kind of spitting it around, but that's part of the show. You get
I didn't know if I was looking there.
You.
I'm looking properly. Yeah. I'm like, hey, I don't know if there's anybody I like enough to let him spit. Like,
No, you get a little blood on you if you're that close to Gene's side of the stage. He's also been doing the fire breathing act forever. So when the guy comes out and gives him the thing, and he breathes fire through the
see, that even impressed me too, because Gene Simmons is a thicker guy,
right? Yeah.
So he's bigger, and then when he put and I'm like, I've seen bartenders do this, and they put the substance in their mouth, but they haven't been singing a set for an hour,
right?
I'm and I know from being a fighter, if I sit there and go, okay, in the middle of cardio, your heart rate's up. Don't breathe through your mouth. Completely shut your mouth or put something in your mouth. So I was impressed that he was able to put that in his mouth, so obviously just breathing through his nose. I'm like, man, these guys are in decent shape because, you see everybody. I mean, you see singers up there when they're singing and going through the performances. They're sweating. They're working hard. There's cardio essence, aspect to it.
And they're wearing all that heavy gear too.
Yeah,
the costumes
and then walking on those
super
fucking
heavy, the big heels,
the shoes. I was looking at that and then hopping around. I'm like, I wonder if there's footage. They had to have. I mean, 40 years. They've rolled their ankle?
Yeah, I mean, I know Paul in particular has had like a hip replacement and, I think one knee or both knees or something like that. I mean, they've definitely had the injuries and had some work done, things like that. But yeah, they, I guess after a time you get used to navigating on those heels. But the other thing too was all the high flying. So you got Gene Simmons going up into the rafters. You got Paul Stanley on the zip line flying through the crowd and everything. And I mean, you cannot be afraid of heights and be in that band.
Even their opening when they came down off the
thing. Came from the top.
I was sitting there looking and I'm like, oh man, because me, I hate heights.
Yeah,
and I can do them. But if you sat there and go, okay, Frank, we want you to talk while you're doing it.
And play an instrument.
You could tell through my voice that I'm not happy about where I'm at. Now, I can get through it.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? I'm not going to be able to breathe all the way down. And my voice will probably come up a couple pinches because I'm going to be a little tighter.
So what you're saying is if on the next Bellator broadcast, if they say, okay, we want you to do commentary, but we're going to lower you from the rafters and we want you strumming a guitar while you do it, we would be able to hear a little distress in your voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I remember one time, I forgot what event that was at. Anyways, they were gonna have the fighters come off from the top. They had a platform, and I'm in a country where I'm not really trusting the people that are building the fucking platform. And they're like, "Hey, you want to go up there?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah, you didn't look like OSHA had been up there inspecting that.
I'll take you guys' word for it. Like, no, go up there. It's cool. You come down. I'm like, nah, I'm all right. I like the ground right here.
Well, I'm glad you got to see that production because that was, Kiss. When I became Kiss aware, which was as a kid in the 70s, they were selling out arenas, and now they're selling out arenas again. I mean, that was a sold-out crowd, and the rest of this tour will be sold out. So playing in these sort of 20,000-seat arenas, Kiss has always done a big stage show. So you've always got most of that. But this is talking about kind of going out on top. This is at the highest level, with the full-on production and all that kind of stuff. It's also interesting to see how successful they've been at their whole business model, because crazy thing about it is, I mean, of the four original guys in Kiss, two of which Paul and Gene are still in it, those two guys from basically the inception realized they were basically two of the savviest businessmen in the history of music. And they're straight edge, no one's a drinker, drug user, or anything like that. And they just realized from a very early point that we're going to be consummate businessmen, And the fact, because I was looking up, like that whole machine that runs, there's so much business within the business. So you sell out 20,000 seats at T-Mobile Arena. But I think I pointed this out to you before the start of the show. Right as the show was about to begin, they were holding about, I don't know, a couple dozen people.
Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, right by one of the ramps. And then right before the show started, they let them come down, and they actually went sort of behind the curtain and sat in this little well, like what would be like the camera well or something of the stage. And those people had bought it was basically like a meet and greet experience kind of thing where they meet the band and then you get one of those seats down in that pit, and I think those went for $6,000 a piece. Everything is for sale. Like the mic that Paul sang on, you could get that for $4,000. The guitar that he smashed up, you could get that for $7,500 or something like that. So it's like, everything was a layer, and that those meet and greets, the ones that Paul had were different than the ones you could also do the whole band for a whole different package. They sell like that cruise they do every year that we still have to go on one of these days. So really impressive what those guys have done, and it was cool to go see, and I'm glad I'm glad I got to take you to your first Kiss show. Yeah, it's funny, we were joking beforehand because we were saying how I said, when I was 7 and I saw these guys, that's what made me want to start a band. I said, this may happen to Frank. He may just decide to take up an instrument,
learn how to play the guitar.
Yeah, put a band together. Yeah, that'd be fun. We could do that. All we need, Mike, he plays something. Do you know? I didn't know he played. I don't know if he's a guitar player. I think he plays guitar, maybe. All he needs is a drum.
The drums would be the easiest for me to learn.
Okay.
Not that, and I don't know shit about music. I'm just assuming it's striking things at different paces and movements. I'm thinking, all right, it might be
it might be the most adaptable to what you're used to doing.
My hands are a little jacked up over the years of fighting, so the dexterity of strumming a guitar, I just I have a hard time, sometimes.
No, you're right. Now that I think that would be an interesting question for somebody that's a mixed martial artist. What would be the instrument for them to naturally gravitate toward? I've never really thought about that before, but that does make sense that it could be drums, because you got to have some coordination with both limbs. And what you got?
I have a couple of friends that are drummers.
Yeah,
they get carpal tunnel really fast.
Yeah.
Really bad on your hands and wrists.
Well, that's true. Yeah, we have off camera. We have a guest in studio. So he's a contemporary of one of your kids, right, Frank?
Yes, he's on. Blaze is one of the wrestlers from Gorman on Bella's team.
Oh, okay.
So I'm taking him tonight to go to Drysdale's, and so just told him to come and hang out here first.
Yeah, he was just talking to us about some friends that play drums. Is your name actually Blaze?
Yes, sir.
That's a cool. Did you just call me sir? You did, didn't you? Holy crap! That is. I mean, you're talking about getting a cool guy's name.
I'm actually named after someone too.
Who are you named after?
The guy who owned the boat that my parents met on.
Yeah.
Was Jeffrey Blaze.
Okay.
And I have my dad's first name, and then I'm Blaze.
Okay, I don't know how much everybody could hear that, but your parents met on a boat.
Yes.
That sounds a nice way of saying they were consummated on the boat.
My dad, because I'm from Branson, Missouri.
Okay.
My mom was on a houseboat.
Yeah.
With my uncle Jeff.
Hang on a sec. Hold on. Wait a minute. Let me get this. Hold on, everybody. Get your microphone on here. Are you talking now?
Hello?
Hang on. Try now.
Check.
Okay. Why the hell did I not hear you? Hold on. Try again.
Check.
There we go.
I can hear myself.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. Now this is Blaze. And wait, who do you go to? Who's what?
I go to school with Bella. I'm on her wrestling team.
So you're what, 14?
I'm 15.
You're 15. Okay. So you're on the wrestling team with Bella. This is Blaze. Okay. So Blaze has a cool guy's name. We just explained that. And you were saying off mic that. Go ahead. Tell your story.
So my mom was on a houseboat for a party. From Branson, Missouri. So they were on the lake. Mm-hmm. And so my dad was being his weird self, and he was hungry, and he was on another boat. So he swam into shore, got food, tied it to himself, and was swimming back through the lake. And
did his boat just run out of food?
I honestly don't know the whole story.
A question for when you get home.
Saying what I remember.
Yeah. Okay.
So he swam past this boat, and my mom was like, how crazy do you have to be to swim through this lake while there's a bunch of boats in it? Mm-hmm. And because he stopped to talk to her while he was in the water.
Oh yeah.
And so he climbed on board. They started talking. That's how they met.
Wow.
Knowledge.
Okay. All right.
That's the official story. No.
Yeah.
But the guy who owned the boat was Jeffrey Blaze. I'm not gonna reveal my first name because I don't like my first name. But I'm blazing my middle name. So. Man,
that is a cool guy's name. I mean, you understand, I'm a firm believer that, there are certain names, there's certain names, you could name your daughter, and it's just going to make it really extra difficult for her to be unattractive. There's just certain names that that's just a hot girl's name. Same thing with cool guys' names.
I have 2 cousins that are both models, both named Jade.
Yep, see, that's right. Yeah, you don't see a lot of tore up Jades. Our friends that went to the Kiss concert with us, our friend Sherry, and then her husband Max that plays
the drummer.
Drums. Yeah, they their band was playing out on the strip before the Kiss concert. They have 2 sons named Ace and Jet. Cool guy names.
That's hard not to be cool named Ace.
You got cool. Your kids have cool guy names. There's no Herberts in your family.
It's funny. It was actually because I got to name the boys, so I got to pick some cool names. With Bella, I wasn't trying to pick a cool name. I was just trying to pick a name I hadn't heard as a stripper.
Makes sense.
I worked at a strip club for 8 years, so I'm sitting there going, all right. People start naming names. I'm like, I remember one time one of the names of the girl, and we had one with that name that was atrociously whorish. And I was just like, no, that's a pretty name, but every time you say it, I'm just thinking of so-and-so now, you know what I mean? I'm like, nope.
That's a funny way to look at it.
You mentioned the name Jet. Jeff, the guy who I'm named after, he has a son whose name is Jet Blaze.
Jet Blaze.
And that's
my
just
gosh.
such a cool name.
Jet Blaze. Hi, I'm Jet Blaze.
A lot of
Holy smokes. Wow. Oh, nicely
like my
done.
first name, I just have my dad's first name. It's Reginald. So it's Reginald Blaze. I'm like, that's like a formal name.
Yeah, but Reggie, that's not bad. Reg.
My dad goes by Reg.
Yeah.
So we both try to avoid Reggie because it's just like a common nickname. It's either Reginald, or for me, Blaze. He doesn't go by his middle name ever, because he has his dad's middle name. We both have one of our father's either first or middle name, and he doesn't go by it. I think in honor of his father.
Wow. Do you have siblings?
I have a stepsister that used to train with Frank, but I'm an only child otherwise.
Okay. Hey, me too. Look how well I turned out. All right. Well, anyway, I'm glad you're hanging out in the studio with us here, Blaze. All right. So there's your Kiss concert review. Couple other things to share with you guys. Have you ever had to deal, Frank, with the damnable plague profession of the roofer?
No.
Okay. Let me tell you what's going on at the Hunter household. So,
are they worse than air conditioning guys?
I think so, and I'll tell you why. And this is coming from somebody who had to get him a new air conditioner in the last few years as well.
Those guys will rip you off.
Yeah. So I bought a house. I've owned my house 4 years. And in fact, it's interesting you mention air conditioning, because I'll just talk about that for a second. You live out here in Las Vegas, you got to have you a good air conditioner. And about 4 years ago, I bought my house, and then the year after that, the AC went out. So you call up the guy. I knew I was in trouble with the AC. When they come out, they look at it, say, yeah, you definitely need a new AC. And
how old was the AC?
It was old. I mean, it definitely. I did not quarrel with them that it needed to be replaced. Okay. But when they said, okay, well, here's the size that'll work for the house, and they ran the credit check and everything's okay there. Boy, here came 3 trucks and 2 crews. They brought a crane out, and the crane lifted it over the wall into my backyard. And I thought, this is all too smooth. Like, these guys have all this figured out where this makes a ton of money. Sure enough. I mean, I paid the price. Okay. But here's the thing with roofing. So we just got new flooring put in the house. We got rid of the way my house is. It's a 2-story house, but the second floor is like a loft with a vaulted ceiling. That's the cat's area. They get the loft to themselves. No dogs allowed. And so we got the last bit of carpet that was in the house was up there. So we got rid of that. We put down flooring and everything. I just gotten this new flooring put in my house, and it rained real hard here in the last week or so. Very unusual. Very unusual for Las Vegas.
Especially the snow.
Yes, yeah, it was snowing, raining, and so it started raining. All of a sudden, I look up, I got a leak in my roof, water just dripping down, right? So put the bucket under there, call the guys out, and so, again, here came the multiple crews. So first thing is, they got to dry it out. They moved these giant fans into my house. They put them up in the attic, they put them all around, and they have to run on high for 24 hours a day for like 3 days. They cut a big hole in my ceiling where the wet spot was. They're drying out the entire house. A guy comes in with this infrared radar gun looking thing, and he's aiming it all over the walls, and he can go, yep, it's wet in here, it's wet in here, it's wet in here, we got to draw all this out. He turns those fans on. They leave them running for 3 days, and he says crank the heat up in the house to 75 degrees and don't turn it down. 3 days straight. Yeah, 3 days straight we lived like that. So he just got it done. Now they put a tarp up on the roof because the leak is coming from like where the pitch is, right? So But a tarp up on the roof, now you got to get a whole nother crew that comes out, and they're the ones who do the outside fix. Well, when the insurance adjuster came out to look at it, he goes up on the roof, and he comes down, and he's like, yeah, there's some tiles, out here you have the Spanish tile kind of houses, and we have the tile roof. And he's like, yeah, you got some loose tiles, and there's water coming in through the tiles and everything. And he goes, it looks like some tiles weren't sealed correctly or whatever. And I said to him, I'm like, this is the real bitch of the whole thing, is like, I just got a new dishwasher, okay? So if the dishwasher isn't working, I can tell it's not working because it won't wash the dishes. You know what I mean? That I can look at and see. But if you come put a new roof on my house and you come down and I go, hey, did you put the tiles on right? And you're like, oh, yeah. Okay, great. How am I going to know?
Check that.
Yeah, it's like, how are you going to know? So now I'm going to have to just have blind faith, which as atheists, we try to steer away from. Yeah, and
that's why I always. Well, I used to always use 2 different crews.
Yeah,
I'd call someone out. Okay, what's the estimate? And then I would spend the money and call somebody else out.
Oh yeah.
Because one time it happened with an electrician where I was young. I just first house. I'm like 22 years old, 23. I didn't know.
Yeah.
The GFI button, and some guy was going to charge me. So then, and it was only by chance that I had called one guy. He showed up. The first person I called didn't come, and then the second person I called showed up, told me, oh, it's going to be this, and this. The first guy called back like the next day, oh, no, I can make it down there. I'm like, oh, I'll come for free, sorry for the problem. Oh, okay. So he showed up, he goes, oh, I'll just come in and check it out. Basically he dropped his, I'll show up for $50, just let me check it out. And the guy, he walked through, goes, no, look here, dude. And he hit the button, and I'm like looking at him, I'm like, holy shit, man, I almost paid. And so then with the air conditioning units, that's why I've only had a problem with them. One time when the airs first went in my house, because we have 2 units, and at, summertime, Jennifer was running it too cold. Come out, you need a new compressor, this and that. I'm like, oh, okay. The next unit guy showed up, and he went out there. He goes, nah, man, you just froze the tube up. Just turn the air off for fucking 24 hours, and the Freon, everything it'll let loose. He goes, you ran it too cold for too long, and you basically froze up the tube. And he goes, yeah, just you could see it from the outside of the house. And I'm looking, I'm like going, oh. So that's why I'm like, son of a bitch, you were gonna go ahead and charge me for a new unit. Like, were you really going to? You're just gonna turn it off, flip it, Probably or charge me for a new unit, take mine and sell it as a refurbished one. Like, I don't know.
I hate stuff like this.
That's why you have to have a handyman and a mechanic you're friends with.
I've got a story like that. A couple 6 to 8 months ago, the hot water heater in my dad's house blew out. Like, it didn't explode through the roof or anything.
On the houseboat.
But it just stopped working. No.
Oh, he's living in a house. Okay,
No,
this is no longer on the houseboat. Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. Get proper house. Okay.
So we have to get a full new unit, which takes like a week. So ice cold showers, that's fun, especially in August. Yeah. But so we have a friend who is a handyman. We usually call him for anything, like a door has a hole in it, wall has a hole in it, something broke.
What's going on at the house? A lot of holes in the walls?
Well, we're a fighting family.
Okay.
But
didn't mean to pry.
Like sink doesn't work, something like that. We'll call him out. He'll fix it for like $200. So we had to call like the full crew from the insurance company to come fix his hot water heater. So they replace the unit. They do all that. Our handyman is there, like watching them like a hawk. He's like, you don't need that. Why are you about to charge him like $300 for new pipes? He cuts the pipe, puts it back in, works in like 10 minutes.
I like that.
The guy's like, I didn't know. I'm just doing what I'm being told to.
You know what? That's pretty smart. Where you got like a middleman enforcer type that kind of like a house manager.
Do that.
Adam Carolla.
That's pretty much the premise of his show, wasn't it?
Yeah. To catch a contractor.
Catch a contractor.
Oh, that was a genius show. Love that. Yeah, it was. If anybody's never seen this, I don't know. Where they're available, if you get them on iTunes or whatever. It originally aired on Spike TV before that became Paramount. It's a few years back. But if you know Adam Carolla, the godfather of podcasting, he had a show, and it was kind of like To Catch a Predator, the old To Catch a Predator. But the concept was he would find a family who had been screwed over by some contractor, and they would set up a sting house operation. They would find the contractor, and they'd call, and, hey, can you come give me an estimate on this paint job or whatever? And the contractor would come to the sting house, and he would think he's given the estimate, but when he walks in, Adam would come out with all the photos of the job that he had botched and said, hey, remember the Johnson family here? And they would bust him on it because he basically would have walked off the job and, ghosted him. And then the guy's given the option to fix whatever happened, or they were going to sue him in court. And the guy would always opt to, okay, fine, I'll go back and fix the job. But for the couple of days that he was fixing that job, Adam Carolla, the comedian who also was a contractor before he was a comedian, so that's why he's hosting the show, because he knows what he's looking at, would just berate this guy for 2-3 days straight, just hammering him while he's fixing whatever he's doing. It was a great show. Great show.
Our handyman, he's better than most of the crews we've ever had to hire.
Yeah.
When we moved into the house we're in right now, we were like, we have this big empty space and nothing to put there. Like, there's a lounge here and there's just an empty space behind it. So we were like, let's design and put in a bar. Frank, you've been to our house. It's a nice bar. We put that in 6 months after we moved in. Took about 5 weeks to build that, because we just called our handyman. He called some of his buddies. They bought the granite from wherever. They bought the glass and shelves. It was done in no time. But I feel like if we had used a contractor or a crew, it would have taken months, and it would have been way more expensive.
Yeah.
Just in my opinion.
You just kept it local. Yep.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that approach. Yeah. Well, anyway, I was thinking too. That's kind of a speaking of an Adam.
Your guy's back on too. Speaking of, not to jump subjects, I was just thinking Bernie.
Yeah.
All right. He's back with a fucking.
Let's segue.
Wow, what a he broke Kamala Harris's record there, right? She didn't hold it for too long.
Yep. Bernie Sanders officially back in the race.
Like $4 million in the first 2 or 3 hours or something.
Yep. He out fundraised any of the other Democratic candidates that are in the race so far. Ask me my thoughts about this. Ask me some questions.
I was very excited to actually ask you because I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, it's
his age. He's 77, right?
Yeah. Is he exactly that old? I don't think he's quite that old yet. Is that right? I know he's in his 70s. Hold on, I'll pull it up for you.
I know he's in his late 70s.
But Bernie Sanders and I go way back. Because Bernie Sanders was
He's
always
77.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Now, look at you doing a little guest producing over there. Nicely done, Blaze. You may have a future in podcasting.
I actually I work on the school news.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually technical director.
Oh, very nice. Well, we will have to remember that for when Mikey can't, like Mikey's out today.
Yeah,
he had to do a Golden Knights game. I appreciate that. So the deal with Bernie is he was the example that I used for years and years of a real liberal and someone that could never be nominated, could never win the nomination for president. And I was proven largely wrong because he almost won it 2 years ago. And I was happy to be proven wrong about that. But, when people call Hillary Clinton a liberal, it's not true. She's a moderate. She's more hawkish from a military standpoint than Barack Obama was. Barack Obama wasn't a liberal. He's a left-leaning moderate. Bill Clinton was really a moderate. I don't think there has been a legit liberal elected president since Franklin Roosevelt. And it's a scary word to a lot of people. So you don't ever want to say, if I'm running against you, I don't want to have a campaign ad that says, Senator Frank Mears, the 23rd most liberal member of Congress, because that doesn't sound scary. You have to be the most liberal. You have to be the worst, the biggest, the scariest,
like
right?
Those Congress attack ads. Like
Yes, exactly.
Crooked Nancy Pelosi.
They all sound like
ads.
that. They all sound like that, sure. So I would always take exception to anybody, a lot of those folks being called liberals. But Bernie Sanders was somebody you could actually call a liberal. He's somebody who's a democratic socialist. He's somebody who favored things like Medicare for all, free college tuition. So I always said, look, that's an actual liberal, and that's somebody who probably can't get the party's nomination. But as it turned out 2 years ago, he might have, and he might have had a better chance against Donald Trump than Hillary Clinton did, because there were a lot of things you could hang on Hillary Clinton that Trump successfully did that you couldn't hang on Bernie Sanders. He doesn't take Wall Street money, a lot of that stuff that you could criticize Hillary for. But
I mean, how many people? I think the general masses, when it came 2 years ago, there was a lot of people. If you weren't, a Republican, or you weren't a Democrat, if you were just somebody in the middle, how many people were talking about it? I was like, well, who do you dislike least?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was like, who's the lesser of the two evils?
Well, that was definitely the problem between Hillary and Trump for a lot of people.
So I think that if you would have put Bernie against Trump, I agree with you. I think that Bernie probably would have. Because, I mean, there's really, like, you can't sit there and go, well, I don't like it. It's like, well, I mean, he doesn't have any skeletons in his closet. There's no emails or anything else to hang him with.
Yeah, the thing that has always appealed to me about, and it's just interesting we're talking about this because now he's going to enter a much more crowded field, and this always happens when whoever the incumbent is, whatever party they belong to, in this case Trump, the Republicans, but same thing with Obama and when he was running for re-election, you don't get a lot of people primarying the sitting president. All the entrants come from the opposition party, and that's usually where the field is big and wide, and that's the same thing that happened with Trump last year. I mean, he beat out a lot of competition. We're starting to see the same thing with the Democrats. So now Bernie, as opposed to basically just running against Hillary Clinton, is, at least at this point, entering a very crowded field. And it's interesting because there are elements of each of those people that I find things that I like about them, but I also find some negatives. And that's the thing about Bernie Sanders is, for me, I always come back to the economics of the situation, and I feel like capitalism has changed a lot, and not for the good, over the decades. Like in the 50s and the 60s, in this country, we manufactured things. We made things. You couldn't be a multimillionaire or a billionaire just by sort of moving money around. That profession came along in the 80s and the 90s, where you would find these guys who were some of the richest people you would ever see, but you're like, what do they actually do? What do they make? And the answer was nothing. They were doing that. Like Mitt Romney made a lot of money that way. He would buy up struggling companies, strip off the parts, sell them for salvage essentially, and then just keep rolling money into money. But one of the things about Bernie that I've always appreciated, and that to me it always comes down to his central philosophy, is something like one of his mantras is that anyone who works 40 hours for a living in America should not be living in poverty. I don't understand why that's a controversial statement. To me, the most American patriotic thing that a business owner could do is to be able to say, you know what, my employees, no matter how big or small my business is, no one who works for my company lives in poverty because they work a 40-hour job for a living. Doesn't mean you're making them rich. Doesn't mean they may be just $1 above the poverty line. But to me, it seems like in this country, we should just have that as a minimum standard, just the same way we have things like child labor laws. Like, I think we were talking about that with Mikey a couple of weeks ago. Like, things that we get now for cheap could be even cheaper if we had 7-year-olds make them and we paid them 50 cents an hour. But we have decided as a country, post-Depression, post-Industrial Revolution, we're not going to do things like that. So why not decide, you know what, and I'm not talking about the kid who's mowing a lawn after school or the kid who's working his little part-time job. But the problem is that unchecked, a lot of corporations will game that system. Walmart did it for years and still does, where they'll go, oh yeah, you're not a full-time employee at 40 hours, you work 35 hours a week, and that way you don't qualify for benefits. And they game the system like that when that they have the resources to make sure that not one of their employees lives below the poverty line. So that's a big thing to me,
I guess the strongest argument against it would be that I could imagine myself if I own a bar down the street,
right,
and all of a sudden I have to pay everybody $15 an hour, then the price of everything is going to have to jump up.
It would.
Now the burger that I sell you for $10 and fries, now it's a $25 burger. how does that affect the economy?
Well, what I would say a couple of things to that. One, I would say, and this is what I wish we would have a cultural shift on. You know, when we champion things like Made in America, right? That's something everybody likes to see, Made in America. I would like to see heroes and heroines made out of that bar owner or restaurant owner or whatever it is who make sure that their employees make a living wage. So if that's you and you own that business, I wish that as a culture we championed you. We didn't measure your stature by how much money you had or what kind of car you drove. We measured it by, hey, you know that bar that Frank Mir owns? Nobody that works for him lives below the poverty line. That's why I go there. That's why I buy his burger. Okay, his burger cost me a couple of bucks more, but that's like buying Made in America, you know, as opposed to Joe Blow's place over here where I know I'm getting the cheaper product, but everybody's struggling to make ends meet, and the single mom that's waiting on my table is also on some kind of government assistance because he doesn't pay her enough. Like, I wish that we use things like that to measure stature. Does that
makes
you
sense.
see what I mean?
I can see, though, being a product of Las Vegas, there's a lot of jobs out there where people don't make much hourly, but they know they're going to get tipped.
Okay, sure. And that's something that you're going to need to take into account as far as, like, if you have a wait staff job. I understand that because those people do make tips, you don't necessarily always give them. In fact, the
would you make
minimum
those exempt, or
yeah, to some degree. I mean, exemptions are fine, and also I also think there's a difference between Walmart and Disney and little mom and pop hardware store over here. But I need to see that reflected on your ledger sheet. Like, I would be fine with giving startup incentives, like if you're starting that mom and pop hardware store or something like that, going, okay, as long as you as a business are not making above a certain level because you got a lot of startup costs and stuff like that, I understand that maybe your jobs would have to pay less. But guess what? If you're paying more, I'm going to give you tax credits. How about that? So compared to the taxes you would be paying, if you can show me that your employees make a living wage, we're going to reward you for that because you're patriotic. See, that's what I wish the definition of patriotism would be to a lot of people. I wish we would decide that in this country, we're going to value that. We're not going to value just on the face of it how wealthy the Walton family is or Jeff Bezos or, you know, whoever, because they've created these mega companies. That's great that they did, and I'm not trying to punish success, but what I really want to measure that by, you want to brag to me about something? Brag to me about your low turnover rate of employees. To me, there would be nothing more American than to be able to say, you know, I own this company, we never get to hire anybody because nobody leaves. Nobody wants to leave. You know, I've had employees that are with me 20 years. Ask them why they're so happy, you know? And I understand that, and the first thing I will hear, and believe me, I will hear it because I know we have the listeners, is that some people will say, hey, I run my little, you know, whatever independent business I have, and that's different than...
Say you have a landscaping job.
Sure.
I bought a truck. I got 3 or 4 guys working for me, a couple lawnmowers, and I'm running a mom and pop, essentially, lawn maintenance, business.
Then what I would want to do is, if you're doing everything by the books, then I would want to incentivize you from a tax perspective, you know, because see, another thing that'll come up too, and this is
because I can see that, you know, like my gardener, I think I pay $120 a month to. They come out once a week, you know, trim the lawn, you know, clean up any shrubbery. Now, I'm sure he's paying his guys minimum wage. You know, the guys that I see out there with the blowers and raking, you know, I'd be shocked if you told me they're making $10 an hour. It'd blow my mind. I can see there being an argument that, like, okay, well, if he's being charged, you know, $15 a head on those guys, man, his operating costs just quadrupled. Now I'm paying $500 a month for lawnscaping.
Well, this is also kind of the dirty little secret of the immigration issue, is that a lot of times the reason that immigration issues have gotten to the point that they have, it's not just one one party being in favor of more lax immigration laws. It's because the business owner has wanted the cheap labor. Exactly. So, if you want to cut the problem off at the source, come down on those people. Come down on the people who are taking advantage of that, who have skirted labor laws in favor of cheaper labor.
How does that work now? If I own a business, if I make an appearance for a company, I fill out a W-9 because they're giving me money. I put down my Social Security number so that they can sit there and go, okay, well, I gave Frank Mir X amount of money, and this is why. Then at the end of the year, I have to claim the cash, that I made. Now, if they don't get my Social Security number, they can't write off the money that they paid me. So as a company owner, I never understood, how do you get away with having illegals? Because you have to have a Social Security card to be on payroll. Do I just not write off the money I'm paying you?
Well, there's a couple things.
If I have to pay you, minimum wage, just say, so this guy, I don't know, make up a number, he makes $16,000 a year. So now I just have to eat that and sit there and go, okay, well, I can't write it off because I can't write off who it is. And is that better than just paying somebody the right amount? And then I can write off as that's not my revenue. That's tax him for the money. I'm writing it off.
I think it's risk reward. I think, of course, sometimes you just pay them under the table. Some people would do that. But the other thing that I think they take into consideration too.
But see, to me, that doesn't help the guy paying under the table. To me, benefits the person receiving money. Doesn't really benefit the person giving it because I can't write it off. For example, all my trainers, I 1099 them all.
Yeah.
So if you work with me in a fight camp, I write down your Social Security number, I get your information, and I 1099 you. So that way, at the end of the year, I go to my tax guy, I get there and go, okay, well, I gave him X amount of money, I gave him X amount of money, so I don't get taxed on it. So if I were to pay my trainers under the table, they would enjoy it more, I'm sure, because now they have cash that they don't have to claim. But then I can't write it off.
But
now I'm being taxed on it.
Well, yeah, but if those people are full-time employees, though, you're paying taxes on them as an employer. And there's unemployment insurance, and there's all that kind of stuff that's going into it, too.
Oh, so it is still cheaper for me just to pay under the table.
Yeah, depending on how much I'm paying you versus how much I would pay you if you were a full-time employee.
I mean, obviously it is. People do it. I just never understood the working mechanics
That's why, for example, you get into this, and this is the part of this that I want to avoid, is this whole gamesmanship of you're really a full-time employee. Like, let's be honest, you show up here 5 days a week and you work full-time for me, but I've got it figured out to where on paper you're really 2 hours below a full-time employee. So I'm not having to treat you like a full-time employee. I'm not having to pay the fees that would be associated with you being a full-time employee. That's just me jacking with the system. To an MMA analogy, that's me putting a hand down on the mat because you're about to throw a knee. That's what you're doing. And to me, that's what I wish we would focus ire on. Now, I
wish they would start at the very, to me, I think needs to take the lead role in that is the IRS itself. I mean, I go to other countries and I talk to some of the guys about how they do their taxes. That's like 2 or 3 pages of, all right, here's a tax code. Like, you don't really need a CPA to figure it out. I've talked to different guys that are experts in it, and they don't fucking know something that the other guy knows. It's like, I mean, you have to have, our tax code is just...
It is complicated.
So
but
crazy. Why does it have to be that complicated? So I think you create it towards a game of somebody like Donald Trump who can brag, goes and not do anything illegal and pay almost nothing in taxes because it's like, well, I have a bunch of guys that are really smart and they understand the system and we're going to game it. It's like, well, fuck, man. It's kind of set up to where you're stupid if you don't.
Yeah, I think what has to happen, though, as complicated as it is, what you will have in that instance is people like yourself who are kind of fed up with all that, is in the moment an opportunist will come along and try to sell you the concept of like a flat tax, or we're going to boil it all down to a postcard. You're going to pay for that. Like the average person is going to take a huge hit from a communal standpoint based on that, but they're trying to sell them this ease and this convenience. One of the biggest...
I've always, every time anybody, obviously I'm nowhere near the expert you are on this, but flat taxes always seem better to me. I'm like, oh, that's so much more transparent.
But yes, but the problem is that the people that would benefit from it in the upper tax bracket, I mean, the amount of revenue that would be reduced coming from those people would be symptomatic of what the problem is to begin with. Here's the honest assessment of it. I mean, if you and I go out to, let's talk about what's fair for a second. If you and I go out to dinner, what's really fair is if we split the bill. That's what's always fair. Now, the reality of it is you make more money than me. So if the bill comes, we both have to eat, or else one of us or both of us are going hungry, and if the bill comes and I only have 25% of the bill and you're able to cover 75% of it, that's not fair. That's 100% not fair. But if that bill is not paid, then people go hungry. An even better analogy is if you and I are roommates. Let's say you and I are roommates, okay? And what's fair is for us to split that rent. But if I'm coming in with a lower percentage of it relative to what I'm making, if we can sit there and argue all we want to about what's fair, but if we don't make that mortgage payment, we're both getting evicted. Yeah. The standard of living for both of us is going to decline. Now, it shouldn't be that way forever. I mean, the idea is that everybody should be elevated. But when you look at, like, if you look at the Eisenhower years, Eisenhower was a two-term Republican president. He was a military general. I mean, there's nothing liberal per se about Dwight Eisenhower, but it was a different time. Tax rates were very high. They were higher than they will probably ever be again in this country. I mean, you had tax rates that were up in the 70 percentile. Now, there were a lot of loopholes. There were a lot of loopholes that don't exist now. And basically what happened was around 1980, when the Reagan Revolution started, he said, okay, look how high these tax rates have been. We're going to bring all these down. Of course, that's where trickle-down economics came. But if you look at the 50s and the 60s and even later, that the American middle-class standard of living, the middle class was much more expansive. You know, if you worked an honest 40-hour-a-week job for a living, you could have a one-income household, you and your wife, a couple of kids. You could have a car. You could own a house. You maybe take a vacation every year. You weren't going to be rich, but you were going to be comfortable. You were going to be fine. Yeah. And to me, that's fine. That should be where we're at. There shouldn't be a scenario where somebody working one 40-hour-a-week job, a person is not enough, and I got to have another job. Or the concept of having a job, a 40-hour-a-week job, and being on government assistance. We have military personnel that are on government assistance. That's inexcusable to me. That should never happen.
I guess also, too, just the way things are. I look at some of the explanations of, like, okay, we're going to tax the rich type thing. Everybody, incomes of houses over $250,000. Mm-hmm. I'm like, who the fuck said that if you make $250,000, you're rich?
Not anymore.
Honestly, like I sit there, I'm like, almost everybody I'm friends with who both family members work make close to $250,000, and I don't think any of us are. I mean, I make well north of $250,000 a year, and I have since 2000, probably 7. I don't consider myself rich, not even in the slightest. It isn't like you say right now, go, hey, you know, I'm going to go buy a brand new Ferrari, just pay cash for it. You know, that's a rich guy. You know what I mean? Somebody will just sit there and go, oh yeah, fuck it. You want a beach house? I'll go get a beach house. You know what I mean? Like,
that being said, though, you're in the 1% of earners, and
that's still crazy to me that the money that I make considered 1%. I'm like, no, there's no way.
That's the problem. Is when 99% of the population. When 1% of the population is controlling 99% of the wealth or something very close to it, that's the problem, because that's your shrinking middle class. I'm not anti-capitalism by any stretch of the imagination, but what I'm saying is you have got to protect and widen and cause to flourish that middle class. So one of the main criticisms you're going to see levied at somebody like Bernie Sanders, and you're already starting to hear this from Trump, and it's not just for Sanders, it'll be for other candidates as well, but you can particularly do it to Sanders because he calls himself a democratic socialist, is the scare word of socialism, right? Well, America will never be a socialist country. They're already starting to hear Donald Trump say that. I agree with it. We're never going to be a socialist country. We're not going to be Venezuela. However, but if you want to talk about...
Now, is Venezuela a communist country or socialist?
Well, I think you...
To me, when the government completely controls...
That, yes, that is
production, then that's communism. Socialism, to me, is like when we have programs like we do right now. Like we have Medicaid, we have Medicare when people get old, we have Social Security. So I think you could have social programs and not be to me, there's a difference between being socialism and communism.
No,
the government's not coming in and telling Ford from now on, we control this.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And when that has been attempted, even during like wartime, where industries were the idea of temporarily nationalizing an industry in the interest of a war effort, that has been rebuked in the United States. So we have precedent against doing that. We're never going to do that. But you're absolutely right. That is a true definition of communism. But this idea that we have this socialism purity test, and we have no traces of it, and we should always remain 100% pure.
There's traces of socialism all over.
We engaged in socialism when we drove here today. We drove on. You didn't take a tollway, did you?
No.
I didn't either. We drove on a socialist road to get here, and that works fine. And speaking of the highway system, that's Eisenhower.
Yeah.
I mean, that was and also. Somebody who warned of the military-industrial complex. That was Eisenhower's big, legacy of warning to everybody is beware of the privatization of war, essentially. The contractors and things like that when that comes along. So the thing that I like about the thing that, to get back to your question about Bernie, and I don't know yet. I mean, I'm interviewing candidates as we speak to decide who I'm going to support here, because there's some interesting folks out there. But the thing that I like about Bernie Sanders is he always looks like he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders.
He does.
Because he does. He does.
Hey, I respected him, whether I agree with everything he says or not. But there's certain things that will make me respect a man, And I think conviction to put your money where your mouth is. I've never, look, the guy that quotes John 3:16 and then all of a sudden you catch him with hookers, it's hard to get behind that. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Just it is. You know what I mean? Just so if you practice what you preach, though, and you kind of commit to it, whether I agree with you or not, you know what I mean? Like, I have friends that are religious that live a pretty good life, and they try to, as closely as humanly possible within the errors of still being a human, adhere to those principles, and I respect them for that. You know what I mean? Like, I go overseas, I have friends that are Muslim that, you know what I mean, they'll be sitting there like, it's time to pray, can you give me a moment? And I'm like, dude, no one's here watching you right now. Like, I ain't gonna rat on you. And still, no, I can't drink, I can't do this. I have my, my convictions, and whether you know or not, and somebody else, I'm going to follow them. And I remember seeing a picture of Bernie Sanders on a airplane, commercial flight, sitting, economy. I'm like looking over, I'm all, holy shit, that's fucking impressive.
Yeah.
When's the last time? I mean, the guy, I'm sure, look, he just pulled $4 million in donor money in just a couple hours. I'm sure if he wanted to, he can move a few things around.
He could be flying by private jet. He could be
at the very least, the guy could be pulling fucking business class tickets. You know what I mean? Like, but no, that dude sits. I was sitting there going, wow. Especially, 70-year-old man who sits there and goes, not telling me how I should live, but going, no, this is how I'm going to live and how we should all live too. I was like, oh, that's.
See, and you bring up the religious folks. I have the exact same feeling about that. There are a lot of very religious people that I may disagree with them, but I know they really believe that. Yeah. Like, they're not BSing me. That's really what they believe, and we just believe something different. And
I find that honorable.
Well, listen,
I extremely do.
That's why
I don't have a problem calling. Look, we're all atheists here. But I don't have an issue when a guy sits there and kind of follows through on his convictions. I really respect it. In fact, there's times in me I'm a little bit jealous of that. I'm like, wow, I wish, I could believe in something like that without a shred of proof. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even mean that in a condescending kind of way. I just mean like, fuck, man, like, that's honorable. Like, you're going to, I told you my one friend one time, he was an Orthodox Jew, and I didn't know that he was Orthodox Judaism, and one time we got into an elevator and he's not pushing the button. Have I told you this story?
Mm-mm.
So we sit in the elevator and we're talking, and like, he was closer first for the up, and I had to actually like reach past him and press up, and we're talking, and he was part of Echo, so he made good money, and so the elevator doors open. We go, and we're going to go up to his room. And I'm like sitting there. And now, obviously, we're going to his room. I forgot what to discuss or to go over, or, and I'm looking, and he's not pushing the fucking button. I don't know what room he's at, So I'm like, oh, what floor is it? He goes, 19. I don't know, whatever the number was. So I pressed the button. It took me a few times. And then, like, we walk up to his door of his room, and I'm looking at him, like, going, are we at the right room? He's like, yeah. I'm, like, staring at him. I'm like, dude, like, what the fuck is going on? He goes, oh, it's past Friday. I can't use electronics. Yeah. I'm sitting there going, like, I wouldn't have ratted on you. Like, I didn't know. He goes, yeah, no, I adhere to it because it keeps me disciplined, focused. And I was like, dude, that's respectful. I'm like, so wait a minute. So if you get in an elevator by yourself, what happens? He goes, do you know that after about 5 or 10 minutes, the lights turn off? I'm like, no, I don't. Never been stuck in an elevator that long.
He's like, I do.
Yeah, I was like, because I can't ask for help. Yeah. He goes, because that's cheating the system. I'm like, no shit.
Yeah. It to me. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Would he just have to take the stairs?
Yeah, he'll take the stairs, or he gets on there and hopes that if it's busy enough, that someone hits the proper floor and he just happens to fucking.
Do you think the patience you would need for that?
Yeah, that's why I respected that, because I mean, to sit there and go through hardship, self-imposed like that, to me, I mean, that's self-discipline. So I'm always impressed when guys can do that.
Imagine it's him and one other guy waiting for the elevator, right? And the elevator door's open, but before he gets on, he looks over at you and goes, hey, you're not Jewish, are you? Okay, good, come on. Like, it would be the totally misunderstand why he's asking, right? Yeah, the guy's anti-Semitic. No, actually, he's Orthodox.
We can't get two Orthodox guys in here. Well, it's funny, they keep pulling up, and you see that almost be like a skit, like if there's ever like a convention in town, you're like, we got like 15 guys stuck on the elevator. What's wrong with it? Like, no, they're all Orthodox Jews. They won't push the button.
It's funny you say that, because where I live, there's actually live near. Well, you know where I live near, and there's several synagogues around my house, stuff like that. And we have the Orthodox neighbors, so you'll see a lot of people because they walk, after sundown on Friday, whatever it is, and they walk because they don't use cars or whatever. And the other day we were getting ready to leave somewhere, and I saw one of the guys. And he's got, the black suit and the hat and all that kind of stuff on. But he was talking on a cell phone. And I said to Jennifer, I go, I don't think he's supposed to be on that cell phone.
No.
I said, I feel like somebody should know. And I'm struggling for the word. And she goes, you're not suggesting that you get involved in reporting Jews, are you? I was like, all right, you're right.
What's the punishment for that? Like, if you're
I think you just say a bunch of Hail Marys.
I was about to say, like,
I don't know.
Am I confusing my religions?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Hail Mary is a Catholic.
Oh, that is? Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, I don't know. Yeah, I'll ask him next time I see him.
Yeah.
But, okay, so here's the reason that I bring that up. Because if that's what I look for is a genuine article. And that's why people that I disagree, like, somebody like, I don't know, Rick Santorum or something like that, like a former senator, very religious, very, former Republican presidential candidate, somebody I disagree with on a lot of things. He really does believe that. So he's not BSing me. That's why I give him a lot of credit, more so than Trump, for example. Because for me, Trump is a salesman. Trump, I don't think Trump really believes a lot of this stuff. It's just that's what the product is calling for. But, or that's what closing the sale is calling for. But I take exception anytime somebody tries to bullshit me. And I just wonder, because I know there's a large contingent of people who say, well, I don't like this that he does or that he does, but I like the general direction. I like the general policy. Well, that's fine. Any conservative that you elect is going to strip away government regulation. If that's what you wanted, then you'd elect any of those guys. But to me, if you like the birther thing, that Obama wasn't born in America. He was bullshitting you. Now, if you're out there listening and you go, oh, no, he definitely was not born in this country. Okay, fine. You're a true believer. Step aside for this conversation. But I know most of you are going to go, yeah, I know he did that. But, he left alone when it finally came to a head. Yeah, he did. But he tried to bullshit you. Like, aren't you offended by that? If somebody tries to bullshit me, it pisses me off. Like, if I tried to for 2 years to bullshit you about something, and I kept on and you finally cornered me. You finally caught me. Like the way that what happened with him, because in the waning days of the election, if you remember, he finally had to say, okay, yeah, he was born in this country. Never mind all that stuff I was trying to peddle you. But he doesn't just stop there. this is what the salesman does. When you finally cornered them and they sold you that lemon of a product, and you're holding the broken thing that you bought from this guy in your hands, waving it at him, going, "You just bullshitted me. You took my money. You sold me this." He looks at you and he's looking at the broken item in your hand. He goes, "Yeah, have I shown you my new item? I got a new thing. Let me show you. Have you seen the wall? You are going to love the... Come, Frank, put that down. Put that down. Come over here a second. Give me 5 minutes. I want to show you this new thing I got." And they're on another item of bullshit. I don't trust people like that. I don't trust people like that. And
how do you feel about this whole emergency funding thing?
Well, here's the thing. I don't understand. I'm not fundamentally opposed to barriers. So I am not part of the argument that says that a barrier is immoral or any of that. I think I don't like hearing that part of the liberal argument. However, I'm a pragmatist. I'm a pragmatist.
Not realistic to me. I don't think it's inhumane to build a wall.
No, but I'm a pragmatist, and
I just think it's not the best solution.
For example, I lock my doors at night, but I know there's a whole lot more that goes into protecting my house than locking that door. I believe in the lock. I want the lock there. Build the locks. But that's not going to fix everything. There is so much more, right? Even down to like what my property tax rate is in my neighborhood and what I get for that and what our general social climate is like in the neighborhood. If
I was the leader for a day and said, okay, whatever you say goes. Well, all right, well, to get a driver's license, you have to have a social security number. To work a job, you have to have a social security number. There's no more under-the-table type of working. I mean, I think really quickly you would de-incentivize the people to want to be here illegally. To where now it's like, okay, now they have to get in line, do it legally. And then I would reform our immigration process. Because, I mean, really honestly, I come from an immigrant. My father is not from this country.
Nor is mine.
His dad's South African. My father's Cuban, you know, so it's not easy to become a U.S. citizen. I mean, because really, unless you show, like, for example, like, hey, I have some type of talent or skill that you guys could usually, you know, I'm a fucking engineer. Oh, wow, we could use a bunch of you come in. But if you sit there and go, well, I'm a skilled laborer, I'll go work that minimum wage job, you're not going to become a U.S. citizen. You know, so then those guys wouldn't jump the line or, you know, do things illegally. So that's why I think that if we fix that, and you, like you said, like, to me, it's like, well, there's incentive to get over here. Like, like I don't understand. Like, you sit there and go, well, that's racial profiling. Like, what? I go to countries all the time. They ask me for my fucking passport if I get pulled over. It's like,
I'm
show
not
me your
opposed
passport.
to that.
You know what I mean? Like, the whole idea that I can't ask you for your fucking ID, that infuriates me. I'm like, wait a minute. So if I suspect that you don't speak English and you're very obviously not from this country, and you might be. There's certain places people could be born here and fucking not speak English. I get it. You know, I mean, I have relatives that have been born in Florida and their English is fucking horrible. You know what I mean? They grew up in very Miami, you know, very, you know, Cuban, you know, centered neighborhoods where, I mean, I've been places with my wife visiting family where she's frustrated because we can't, you know, she goes, I'm at Walmart and I can't even fucking get in line. I'm like, yeah, babe, you got to understand a little bit of Spanish to get around here, you know?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean,
you can't, but the thing is, you cannot, there are no simple solutions to complex problems.
Well, I don't see how that's such a complex
problem.
No,
I'm not talking about what you're talking about. I'm talking about the concept
keep ID on you.
I'm not talking about that. I'm sorry, I'm changing the subject on you a little bit. What I'm talking about is this concept of a wall.
Yeah.
But that
sorry,
being, I get you. But that being a be-all, end-all. I'm not opposed to barriers, but this idea that, you know, and this is a salesman's tactic. What does a salesman tell you? It's so simple, it's so easy, it's so affordable, it's so quick. That's what a salesman says. Need it. Yeah, and that you need it. A salesman is never going to say to you, okay, this is a major investment. This is not going to pay off quickly or even in the foreseeable future. Eventually, it will be better for you, but it's going to be a long time before you see it. These are all terrible sales pitches. So when a salesman comes along, he tells you the exact opposite.
Why is the wall inhumane? Like, why?
Well, I disagree with that. I mean,
but why? Because you're much more on the pulse than I am on that. What is the inhumanity of having a wall? Because right now, it's not fucking humane anyways.
Well, you
have coyotes that are fucking, they prey on fucking the poor down there that are looking for opportunities up here because there's incentive to be here, and they fucking take all their last fucking dollar with a bottle of fucking water. They try to transfer, you know, over the fucking desert, and they fucking die all the time.
And then there are people that make profit off of finding those people and stealing everything from them, stealing the clothes
Oh,
off their
oh,
backs,
yeah.
stealing
Listen,
I mean,
last
opportunists.
dollar out of their pocket.
I mean, right now it's not humane. You know?
Right. Well, and that's why I said I disagree with that part of the argument. What I'm focused on is saying that there is no simple solution. You know, it's not that the solution was right under our noses all along, and no one ever just thought of the easiest thing to do. Yeah, but that's the problem with the pitch. You know, that's the Trump pitch is only is I can fix this, and it's going to be so quick, so easy. This is not my spin. I'm quoting him. Things that are so easy, so quick, your head's going to spin how successful this is going to be in such a short amount of time. But that's not real. And so what Adlai Stevenson said that when faced with a disagreeable truth or an agreeable fantasy, people will take the fantasy every time. And that's the problem. It's like, go to a doctor and 3 different doctors give you a grim diagnosis and you just keep at it until you find the one that's like, oh, you're fine. You're fine. You're going to be fine tomorrow. Here, just take this pill. And you're like, this is my guy. I believe him. And it's because you like what he's saying better. But
he's telling you what you want to hear.
Sure, exactly. But to me, to talk about my biggest concern about the wall and the declaration of the emergency is that with this president, we have seen a willingness to walk over a lot of what have been established norms and unwritten laws. It says right there in Article 1 of the Constitution that the Congress controls the purse. The Congress controls the money. And the ability to declare the state of emergency came in the 70s, I think, because of the Iran hostage crisis. But presidents did it for things like that. It was never an issue of...
Where they declare war and why Congress is deciding whether to fund it. I don't want to send my soldiers there with no bullets and no food. You know?
So it was. We've never been at a point where we said... If anybody would have said in the past... let's just say what if President Mir, wants to do something, he runs on an idea and Congress beats him back, and what if he used that state of emergency to just unilaterally declare that it was going to happen when it wasn't a real emergency? I think anybody would have said, oh yeah, but that doesn't happen. They know better. They know better than to do that. There's no more knowing better. And listen, I don't want that with President Sanders or whoever I end up supporting. Trust me.
Both sides have pissed me off about this wall thing, to be honest.
Yeah, sure.
Even Pelosi, I'm not happy with her. I felt that she basically dug her heels in and showed me that this wall has nothing to fucking do with fucking having a wall. It's completely about the 2020 election, whether or not Trump fucking was able to get the wall pulled up or if the Democrats can fight him down. To me, it's 100% about that.
Yeah, I will say this, that I think one big concern in all this was setting the precedent. And I did agree with the idea that, look, especially as transparent and obvious as Trump is making all this as far as what his agenda is, if you enable this in any way, it's going to set a precedent, and he's going to keep doing this every time he doesn't get his way. I'll tell you what I'm more concerned about than Trump, is that this can happen again. And I don't want it to happen on the left. I don't ever want there to be a president who acts like an autocrat and who takes advantage of weaknesses in our system to enable that to happen. What I hope, and if my guy or girl gets in there next time, one of the things that I would hope they would do right away is to look at a lot of these loopholes that were squeezed through and close them. And let's start thinking in terms of what if we did have that aspiring autocrat, admirer of strong men come in and be president. Because the whole point is we don't ever want it to be that easy for one man or one woman to make unilateral decisions. That's more like a monarchy.
On this note, one thing I actually have greater admiration for is actually Trump is an extremely clever guy. I mean, think about it. I mean, the fact that he's able to do things that other people never even really probably thought of. I mean, think about it. Even him as a businessman, everybody goes, "Oh, his bankruptcy, this and that." The guy fucking has so much money. Even if you say that his father started him off with whatever amount, he has still built himself into the guy he is now, who won the presidency by being somebody who could always figure out how to manipulate the system. If you think
I'll
about
give
it.
you that.
And to me, to be able to manipulate the system, you can't be a dumb guy. You can't sit there and go, well, you're an idiot, but really that idiot got over on you. So what does that say about you?
I will give you that, but to me, that's just being that's being a very accomplished salesman. He's a good salesman. He's a good marketer. He's a good brander. But to me, those are, for one, I don't think those are necessarily qualities to admire, right? But I definitely don't want it in a politician.
I appreciate that ability.
An elected official.
Well, it's just like, I'm not outgoing, like as far as like what they call it, cold calls. You know what I mean? Like if you sit there and go, okay, this company's going to sponsor me. Like for example, now I'm working with Strike Tech, right, with Wes. I know about his company. I know about the apparatus, the striking sensors. I really like the product. And, he came out here for a couple of days. We're going through it, how to break it down, how to use it. I can't wait now with Bella to start having an ability to really monitor punching power, right? Now, as far as me to be an ambassador for his company and helping him out, you bring someone in, wants to talk to me about it. Yeah, let's talk. Let's go over. But if you sit there and go, okay, actually, here's a list of phone numbers. I want you to start, calling people just blindly. I don't have that in me.
Yeah.
Just to walk up to somebody in a bar and go, hey, here's my pitch. Here I go. Like there's a part of me that I can't do that. But when I see guys that have that very much loud car salesman type personality, it's not my personality. I guess I appreciate it going, wow. I really couldn't do that.
Well, it's an ability, but that's not because this is a hiring process. I am hiring someone to do a job anytime I vote for someone. And I'm not hiring you to sell a product. I'm not hiring you to sell America. I'm hiring you to facilitate it. I'm hiring you. It's much more, I'm not putting you I don't want you on the showroom floor as much as I want you in the office doing the paperwork, and that's how I want you to get things done. What I want to see moving forward is this, because for as good of a salesman as I think Trump is, I think a lot of what is ultimately going to lead to his demise is a lot of ham-handedness. I think a lot of what is going to be proven out, whether or not you ever see any collusion with Russians and all this kind of thing, I think you're definitely going to find numerous examples of obstruction of justice. And I think that was done simply...
He's already done it.
Yeah, and I think...
When we talk to Comey and go, hey, my guy Flynn,
Right.
Take it easy on them. I'm like, holy shit.
Well,
didn't he fire both FBI and CIA directors?
Yeah, and
why are they investigating them?
And the most recent example of calling Matt Whitaker, the acting AG, and saying, "Hey, can we get somebody else in charge of the Southern District of New York because the guy that recused himself contributed to my campaign. That's why he recused himself. How about we get him to unrecuse himself? Then we get that guy in charge of the investigation, and then everybody's not looking so deep into my finances." Guess what? That's obstruction of justice. I mean, I'll bet you a lot of this will come as a big surprise to Trump. I'll bet when they sit him down and say, when he says, "What did me in?" and they go, "Well, it's when you made that phone call and you made that phone call," and he's going to go, I did stuff like that my whole life. What are you talking about? And you're like, yeah, but you were never the president before. You owned a privately held company. You weren't even beholden to shareholders, okay? This is a whole nother lane you decided to drive in. But what I want to see is this moving forward, because I think that somebody else could come along and do this, and they could actually be much better at it than Trump. I fear not the brash loudmouth like he is. I fear the one who appears to be much more buttoned up and by the book, but is behind the scenes running the same game, right? So I want to see things like this.
The one weakness that Trump has that makes him less of a threat in my mind, he's the guy, like, if Trump pulled off the perfect heist, he would tell you about it.
Yeah, he'd tweet about it. He'd have to brag.
He'd have to tell you.
He'd have to tell you.
I mean, like, he's not that guy that can sit there and go, "Hey, you just robbed this bank for more money that's ever been robbed before, and they can't catch you. It was me." You know what I mean? Like, he's that guy.
I got to claim credit for the record.
I mean, you can see even when people make fun of him, which, I mean, Saturday Night Live has made fun of every president. I don't know. I mean, if you're in the public eye, forum, people are going to fucking tease you. They're going to make fun of you. And guess what? When there's a camera always on you, you're going to have stupid looks sometimes. There's going to be angles that you look dumb, and so...
He just feeds them ammo.
Yeah, and then for him to be angry and feel like, someone should, there should be retribution. I'm like, wow, that really pissed you off. Like, Well, for as much money as you have and as powerful as you are, why do you give a fuck?
There needs to be so what I want to see moving forward is, for example, not releasing your tax returns. Every president since Nixon did it, and we don't have a law about it because we have assumed that moving forward, anybody who runs for president is going to do that. Okay, somebody tested the system and refused to do it, so we're done with the gentleman's agreement now. Now that's a rule. I want that to be a rule. And that's the thing with gentleman's agreements. They're great as long as everybody is acting accordingly. You know, as everybody goes, okay, yeah, it's not written down anywhere, but we all understand that that's how we're going to operate to be fair. But
I wonder why they don't just try to pass that now.
They wouldn't have congressional support. I mean, you would have to have, because you still have a Republican-controlled Congress, or rather Senate.
Oh, okay.
And they're not going to. Here's the thing. You've got a lot of people.
They're not going to do something to trip up their guy.
No. And more importantly, not even if they're privately opposed to a lot of what he does, it's more about who's putting me back in office. So let's say I'm a Republican senator, and
Hold
I'm
that thought real quick. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh.
Can't make it anymore.
All right. Frank's headed to the bathroom. You know, we've been doing a marathon podcast when we got to have a bathroom break, but that's understandable.
48, an hour, 48 minutes, 45 seconds.
Oh, good job there. Good job there, Blaze.
I've been holding it. I just.
I'll take this opportunity to mention a couple of things. Phoneboothfighting.com, of course. Our merch store is there. A great way to support the show. T-shirts for sale and the like. You can also follow us on social media at Phone Booth Fighting on Instagram, like our Facebook page. We're Phone Booth Fight on Twitter as well. I mentioned the 5-star reviews on iTunes. That helps us out a lot as well. And the Amazon banner. Now, the Amazon banner is on the front of phoneboothfighting.com for a very good reason. Do you shop on Amazon, Blaze?
I do.
Lots of people do. Next time you do me a favor. Go to phoneboothfighting.com and click on the Amazon banner. Now, that's going to take you right to Amazon. You're going to do all your shopping just like you would otherwise. It doesn't cost you anymore, but because you clicked through that banner, Amazon gives us a little bit of credit for any purchases you make. And so that helps to keep the show afloat, because it does cost some money to do this, actually. We try to improve it as we go and put the money back into the show, like our new microphones, for example. I don't know if maybe you've been able to tell the difference in audio quality over the last couple of weeks, but we significantly upgraded the microphones. You can see them if you subscribe to our Phone Booth Fighting YouTube channel. But the Amazon banner helps a lot with that, so be sure to click through that. Well, Frank, I mean, we'll just spend a few more minutes, but what I wanted to say, and listeners hold me to this, okay? I mean, if Trump turns out to be a one-term president and somebody I support is in there, make sure you continue to hear me say, once that person is in, let's be closing these loopholes. Let's require candidates to release tax returns and not just trust them to do it. Why? Because of transparency. Transparency, that's another thing that should be bipartisan. I don't think there's anything wrong with, at the highest levels of Republican and Democratic politics, is a lot of cronyism, a lot of money that muddies up the waters. I mean, you talk about traveling overseas. A lot of European countries have a much better handle on running elections because they severely limit the amount of special interest money that can come in. They severely limit the amount of time that can be spent on a campaign. So it filters out a lot of the opportunists and the ne'er-do-wells, and they are coming out of every corner. So, yeah. Anything else we didn't cover on that? I mean, I know it's a week-to-week evolving topic. Next week, did you see? I don't know if you saw the reports are that it could just be another week or so when we get the Mueller report.
Oh,
so that's going to be interesting.
See, I still think they're going to hold off.
That it's not going to come out that soon? Or
well, I always feel like those things are so political that it's timing. Because right now, do you think they have enough support to impeach him?
Oh, I don't know. Impeachment is going to, one, it's going to be hard. And two, speaking of getting things on the record, let me say this. Impeachment is bad. It doesn't matter how much I don't like Donald Trump. That is a dark day.
I don't think they're going to impeach. So if impeachment's not on the docket, then why release it now when the elections are still 2 years away? I think that it's one of those things where it's like drag it out, and then just like how the timing of the Hillary, emails being, that was very political, I felt.
Well, I will say this: I don't think the Mueller report is political. Not from Mueller's perspective. I think you've got a guy there who is who's a career law enforcement guy, also a career Republican, by the way. I mean, you got these guys are rank and file Republicans. A lot of them, they're working at the top of it. So I think you'll get a report that's independent of any of that kind of stuff. But I think what's much more likely than an impeachment is a resignation. And that resignation could come because of not the Mueller report, not the looking into Russian collusion and all that, but a lot of what the Southern District of New York is looking at in terms of his finances. Like things like, Michael Cohen's information. I mean, after, 20 years of fixing a lot of problems for Trump, because I think that, has Trump been successful financially? Sure, absolutely he has. Has he been as successful as he claims he has? I don't know about that. And I wonder if there's not, when you really pull back that curtain, you're going to go, oh, turns out this was it was really about 30 or 40% of what he said it was, and it was also predicated on some shady dealings, and especially if that starts to implicate family. You can get away with a lot more stuff in the private sector than you can in the public one, because the public one is regulated. You see? And that's why I'm a fan of regulation, and that makes a lot of people shudder. But I always say, listen, the only people... Do I trust a politician? No, not unchecked, not unguarded. But the only person I trust less than a politician is a private sector business person who is unregulated, because that's where the money is. Yeah. That's where they go to make the money. All you got to do is follow the money. And that is another very bipartisan thing you can say, is money corrupts. And it doesn't matter what member of a party you're in, and that's why I think regulating that kind of stuff is important. I already did all the heavy lifting for you because you went to the bathroom, and I did your social media plugs.
Awesome.
See, normally, Blaze, that's Frank's job, is he has to try to remember.
It took me like 3 months to fucking get it done.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Blaze. It's always nice to have the perspective of youth. Here, what'd you say, you're 15?
15.
All right, you realize that in 3 years, you are going to be eligible to vote.
Yeah.
All right. So you got to get
3
registered.
years, I'll probably be overseas.
Oh yeah. What are you going to join the military or something?
Army.
Oh, you are.
Unless
okay.
I go to West Point.
Okay.
If I make it into West Point. Then.
All right. Well, you'll still be voting.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's a very important thing. Make sure you registered to vote.
Is it an absentee ballot? What the military does?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just mail it off to you.
Yeah, their military ballots are actually.
That's been in the news a lot lately too.
Yeah, a lot of times when you see the results totals, they always talk about how military votes kind of come in last because they have to come in from overseas and that sort of thing. All right.
They also don't get many of the campaign ads. It's just like, oh, here's who's running.
Oh yeah.
Go finish a firefight, and then you can write on your ballot.
Yeah. Well, I so much hope, so much promise ahead of you. I envy that. Things have not taken a turn south yet. Still got plenty of time. Don't worry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a fun one. We covered a lot of ground. Talked some MMA. Talked some politics. I know we'll hear about it. It's so funny because undoubtedly the average person that listens to Phone Booth Fighting is a white male. And that's just the fact, And hey, I'm a white male, so are you. I'm good with white males. But it's interesting to me how different people will hear conversations differently. I was the last couple of days having it out with a couple of different people on Twitter. They were all listeners to our podcast. One guy I'm having a completely legitimate conversation with who disagreed with me 100%. Like we're political opposites, but we're having this conversation, point, counterpoint. I see this. That's a good point. I acknowledged his point. I think, back and forth. 2 other people heard the same thing, whatever it was, and here they come with just a bunch of hyperbole, just a bunch of typical commie-loving, liberal, American hate. And I'm like, so you think that's what it is, right? You think that this is just that I hate America, right? And I hate freedom. And that's where a lot of this comes from. And boy, that to me that is the political version of just going to a MMA fight and yelling "stand them up" all the time. That is just when you don't have anything for the conversation, and so you just sort of speak in these platitudes, Well,
I think what you had said earlier about the wall, how it's a complex problem. I think some of the issues are complex. There's definitely an issue, and I think this helped attributed to Trump becoming president, is that in our country, it is not looked upon in a positive manner anymore to be a white guy. There's a lot of, for example, you could sit there and go, I'm very proud of, brown, my Latin roots, or someone could sit there and I'm very proud of my black roots. You don't see a lot of people getting on Twitter going, I'm very proud to be white. And they really, all of a sudden they start drawing the ears of, well, wait a minute, are you a racist? Wait a minute. So I can't be proud to be what I am, but you can be proud to be with you, and somehow that makes me and I think they get mixed into the shuffle, so it's separating out, and so not disenfranchising certain groups.
Yeah, that's also, though, I think one of those things that just sort of comes along with the legacy. Unfortunately, people who came before us co-opted a term like white power, and that just turned out to mean something different. I mean, it's like killing off the name Adolf. Like we were talking about cool guy names earlier. You can't do Adolf anymore. Why not? What's wrong? My great grandfather was named Adolf, and he was an awesome guy. Yeah, okay. But then another guy came along and fucked it up for everybody. So it's like whoever came along and fucked up white pride. At some point, white pride was not a bad 2 words. And then some racist asshole came along and fucked it up for everybody. So that's just what we got to deal with.
Racist jerk with a pointy hat.
That's right. But fortunately, nobody's ruined the phrase phone booth fighting yet. So we claim it as our own. So we thank you for listening. For Frank Mir, Blaze over there sitting in Mikey's seat. Nice to have him along. Be sure to check out phoneboothfighting.com. We'll see you right back here next time on the podcast. Bye, guys.